So this morning's panel is about improving housing and employment opportunities for special populations. In this panel, you'll hear from 4 of the 12 demonstration sites who will share about the specific needs of clients who are transgender, undocumented, or exiting incarceration. Sites will describe the specific barriers to services and strategies to address the needs of their clients. This panel offers a high-level overview of the most salient points on the individual, organizational, and systems level. It's important to note that each of these historically underserved groups could have a full panel dedicated to discussing how to provide the most responsive and effective services. We hope this accomplished panel offers tangible lessons learned as a great jumping off point for further conversation. Our first presenter today is Tren Tang. Tren supports PRC's social services program in her role as Chief of Programs and Confidentiality Officer. Previously, Tren served as the Managing Legal Director for PRC's Legal Advocacy Program, where she helped launch its healthcare legal services practice. She's the Principal Investigator for the PRC demonstration site. Our next speaker today will be Nancy Vasquez. Nancy works as a member advocate for the University Health System located in San Antonio, Texas. She joined the SPINS team in October of 2018. Nancy is also a licensed Texas real estate agent and has leveraged her knowledge of the real estate market and her client skills to help meet clients' housing and employment needs in this project. Next, we'll have Milagros Izquierdo. Milagros is a community leader who has held positions in the City of Patterson Ryan White Grant Office for over 20 years, from bilingual program monitor to program and fiscal analyst, culminating in her current leadership position as the director of the Ryan White Grant Office. She's also the principal investigator for her demonstration site. Next, last but certainly not least, we have Sylvia Valadez. Sylvia is a fabulous research evaluation specialist at AIDS Foundation Chicago. She has worked on the Safe and Sound Return Partnership Program for the last year. And so I'll turn it over to Tren to talk about supporting transgender clients and obtaining housing and employment.
Good morning, my name is Tren Tang. I'm the Principal Investigator at PRC for our intervention. I'm talking this morning about serving transgender clients and best practices for providing client-centered services. I want to start by sharing a little bit about PRC and our mission. We are a multidisciplinary organization based in San Francisco. Our mission is to help people affected by HIV, AIDS, substance use, or mental health issues better realize opportunities by providing integrated legal, social, and health services that address the broad range of social risk factors that impact wellness and limit potential. PRC has a 30-plus year history of serving clients in San Francisco and the Bay Area community, and we reach about 5,600 individuals annually. In terms of our intervention, we really provided a high level of case management and with the purpose of coordinating and linking clients to housing, employment, and healthcare resources. One of the unique features about our intervention is that PRC offers a wide array of wraparound social services in-house. So that includes workforce development, employment services. It also includes emergency financial assistance for housing, medical, utility, eviction-related expenses. Legal advocacy to help people get SSI, SSDI benefits or healthcare matters resolved. And we also provide residential treatment, and that's in the form of behavioral health treatment and recovery services for people with mental health and or substance use disorders. For this intervention, we also partnered with a HOPWA-funded housing site, one of the housing providers in our downtown Tenderloin area, and we worked very effectively in supporting mutual clients. I will say that our intervention focused, I would say, probably more on the housing aspect. That became our primary focus because we were able to really partner well with our internal employment services team, and so the interventionist team were really kind of more hyper-focused on the housing aspect. I also want to just share a little bit about our client population in PRC. Our total client population, as I mentioned, is about 5,600 people. About 4% of those folks identify as transgender, genderqueer, intersex, or two-spirit. Approximately 9% of our intervention participants identify as genderqueer, gender nonconforming, or transgender. 4% specifically identify as transgender. And for context, I want to share that 0.8% of Californian adults and 0.6% of US adults identify as transgender. So I would say that as an organization, we have some significant experience working with transgender clients. And to start off our discussion today, I think it's really important to first recognize and call out the inequities and disparities that transgender people face. And I want to just point out that transgender people face disproportionately high rates of poverty, suicide, homelessness, isolation, substance abuse, violence, and low rates of health insurance. I don't think any of this is surprising to all of us who work in this field. I also want to call out that stigma in all of its forms is shown to result in 40% increase in delaying needed, urgent, preventative health care. And we know that it's not just health care that's delayed. We know that folks who are transgender also experience delay in accessing all the social services that we all provide, ranging from housing to employment and so on. And we know that partly the prolonged disparities are due to exclusion of data collection. So in part, it's related to our failure to consistently collect information about our transgender clients and really use that data to improve our services and identify the issues that they are dealing with. In terms of housing, I wanted to point out that we know that there are still 23 states out there that still do not prohibit discrimination based on gender identity or sexual orientation. So there's a lot of inequities that we're dealing with. When I think about stigma also, I am reminded of an example that one of my colleagues shared. And this is an example that she recalled where she was working with a transgender client, wanting to get some basic paperwork signed, and thought she could arrange for a meeting to occur in our downtown office. And at that time, our office was located in Union Square, which is the busiest area in San Francisco. It's the shopping district, tons of tourists. And the client conveyed that she was really intimidated and reluctant to come downtown. She didn't have a problem with meeting to sign paperwork, but she knew that the trip downtown could be dangerous for her. She was fearful that she might be attacked or antagonized. And she said that she did not want to be looked at like an animal in a cage. And so I thought that this was a really prime example of anticipated stigma and how that can delay access or engagement with service providers. And it's, I think that this really gets to the key of serving transgender clients. What is it that we are trying to do? We're trying to provide client-centered services in a welcoming and inclusive environment, because we know that one of the predominant barriers to accessing services is stigma. Moving to the next slide, I wanted to talk about, so what is it that we do to address stigma? What is it that we do to help create a welcoming, informed environment? And when I, communicated with my team about this presentation, we all recognize the value of the sexual orientation and gender identity training that is required at PRC. This is a training that we require staff to complete on an annual basis. And it's also required by the San Francisco Department of Public Health of all contracted entities that we provide this cultural humility and sexual orientation and gender identity training to all of our staff. This further stems from a state law that requires the collection of demographic data related to sexual orientation and gender identity. And so what does the training cover? It addresses basic terminology and health issues for LGBTQ plus people. It really talks about creating a welcoming and inclusive environment, and it discusses the importance of collecting data related to the LGBTQ plus community. And what this does by providing this training, requiring it for all staff, is that it establishes a minimum standard for service delivery. It gets us all on the same page in terms of the language to use. It gives our staff the skill, the confidence, the ability to communicate with their transgender clients about sexual orientation and gender identity. And it makes them more aware, sensitive to the issues pertinent to this community. I wanted to call out an example of this and how the training and cultural awareness, this call to creating a warm and inclusive environment plays out at PRC. We worked with a transgender woman who was needing housing, but she had been approved. She had been waiting for a very long time for breast augmentation surgery. And finally, she was in line, and she finally got approved for this surgery. However, her doctor was reluctant to move forward with it because she did not have secure housing. And she was working with my colleague Masami at the time, and Masami, being aware and conscientious of how important the surgery was for our client, Masami and the client worked together to create a plan so that she could have a recovery in a medical recovery center for 2 weeks, and then thereafter moved into an SRO. Certainly, Masami could have disregarded this person's needs, wants, desires, and goals, and said, you know what, you really need to put off that surgery until you have housing in place. Or Masami could have simply found any SRO or any shelter space and called it a day and said, okay, now you have housing, go forward and have the surgery. But she realized that the surgery was of primary importance to the client. So she worked collaboratively in-house with the client, with our partner agencies, and found a really fitting and appropriate solution for the client's problem that she faced. Another way that we do this is within our workforce development program. We offer tours of our building and of our program for people as a warm entry. The tour is guided by our managing director of employment services, who is self-identified as gay. We welcome our trans clients to come with a friend, family member, or a service animal, and we really just walk them through the entire building, introduce them to staff, and then we sit down with them for a one-on-one and identify and understand what their needs are, what their goals are. So in this way, we really empower prospective clients and our clients, our existing clients, and make sure that they're comfortable, they feel welcomed in our programs and in our office. So in terms of best practices from an organizational standpoint, what can we all do? I think that there is a lot of value in implementing some basic training for all staff, making it a requirement on an annual basis. I think one of the keys also is to come back and revisit the training. One of the pieces of feedback I got from my team was that the training was basic, but they would really like some advanced training, detailed information on kind of the logistical considerations for people related to healthcare matters. And it's something that we think that we can really come back to, revise, modify year over year to improve our service delivery for our transgender clients. Also, really engage leadership to implement protocol for developing an inclusive and welcoming environment. And I think that really stems from a directive at the highest leadership level to implement demographic collection protocol as well, so that we're collecting data, because data is the only way that we can see issues come to light. And if we're not doing that, then we're not unveiling, we're not unearthing the real issues that people are struggling with. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy Vasquez. I am going to be presenting on supporting clients with undocumented status in obtaining housing and employment. This is our work here at Bexar County Hospital District, also known as University Health System. So a little bit about our program. Here at University Health System, our program is called CASE, SPINS program, and the CASE stands for Care, Housing, and Employment. This SPINS initiative was SPINS was the first initiative, SPINS initiative for Bexar County and our system. We began our work at September 2017, and our intervention approach was to announce and share our program to our partners, our ASOs here in San Antonio and our county, and receive referrals to assist clients with housing and employment troubles. And we quickly did receive referrals. They were happy to have someone else or another program to assist them with the client's needs. So we quickly began to enroll clients. And as we did, I'll kind of just tell you a little bit of the intervention staff and what it consisted of. We have program coordinator and 3 member advocates, such as myself. Once the program coordinator received referrals, he would enroll them and then assigned the clients that were enrolled to a specific member advocate, depending on needs, but most of the time it was in general. Once we did so, we started to research housing opportunities with private landlords or just affordable housing opportunities, whether we were working with local affordable housing workshops here in our area. Also, employment searches. We perform tailored employment searches depending on clients' past experience and current possibilities. And so we were just jumping on every lead that we could get. As we heard of places and we tried to connect with them, we found very good resources and ended up having great partnerships with them. One of the main ones was Raices, which is short for Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services. Raices itself provided assistance for people needing immigration law services for little or no charge. Along with their services, we were able to pass along educational tools that they coordinate there to be able to educate clients on rules and regulations during the process of achieving a legal status or a visa or anything that would help them stay in this country or here legally. Also, the Ryan White program, ASOs were extremely helpful. Clients had access to supportive services with them and having without having a legal status here. So whether it was case management and supportive services such as transportation, HOPWA funds. So that was really one of the agencies we really leaned on our partner agencies. Another organization to highlight was Locating Oficina Latina, which is a small nonprofit that began in 2007, started by a woman who navigated and advocated for herself through the immigration naturalization process herself in the early 90s. Once she became a U.S. citizen, she realized there was so much help that she could do and help guide people through the process. So she currently does immigration help, whether it's translation of legal documents, the application, just trying to orient people where to get certain things and avoid fraud by people that currently are out there for profit and not really helpful means. But also she holds like legal clinics at like a local YMCA, this is pre-COVID, and be able to reach more of the community and help them and get good education from a true source rather than maybe like, just a friend down the street or something like that. I myself was able to attend her immigration training process, and it helped greatly just because we're able to very well navigate like what is ever changing. So it's never up to date, it's always changing. But I'll be able to share 2 client stories today and to demonstrate how we coordinated the resources and secure the housing and employment for them. So the first client story is of Victor. Victor is a cis male in his 30s. He is originally from South America, and in 2016, after marrying a U.S. citizen, he was awarded a 2.5-year provisional visa to enter the United States. Unfortunately, the relationship became abusive, and after a fight with his husband, things resulted in an arrest and a domestic violence charge for my client. The visa then became in jeopardy as the circumstances had changed for him, and with no family support, no one here to lean on for guidance or help, my client ended up homeless and actually lived in his car. Fortunately, he found the Alamo Area Resource Center, which is ARC, one of our partner agencies, and the client was referred over to us. So the steps taken for this client, we addressed the homelessness by referring him over to a transitional housing that is known as Carson House, that is ran or operated by San Antonio AIDS Foundation here in San Antonio. We also were able to start with his resume to prepare him for a job search. So we sent him over to Goodwill Career Services resume and also worked with him in-house with that as well. We referred him to Raíces, the organization that I spoke about at the beginning, and that is specializing in his immigration law needs. And then we referred him to Career Gear of San Antonio, which is a Dress for Success for males that are needing professional clothing. We also were able to connect him with Oficina Latina to assist with translation of his transcripts from back home. And he had completed his degree his bachelor's degree in arts and was a teacher. And also during that, we were able to provide a character letter during his application during the U.S. permanent residence application. He worked with a member advocate. He was active, and she wanted to provide that to him after he requested that and his lawyer. We went through legal services here, and we were able to provide something that would be good for him in his process. The latest updates on Victor. He is currently a U.S. permanent resident as of June of this year, and it won't expire until June of 33. He's very excited about that. He also is currently completing his teacher certification program at San Antonio ISD and receiving HOPWA assistance through one of our partner agencies here. And also with securing housing and employment, he was able to have his private medical insurance by his employer now. So that's a really good update about Victor. As my second client story, I would like to share Maria's story. Maria is a middle-aged cis female who is originally from Central America. She lived in the U.S. over 25 years with an undocumented status. Maria had recently widowed and began facing foreclosure just before we met. Among other of the things that she was worried about was having her American-born girls with HIV. Client had no formal work experience and was all alone now. Without her support, she was referred. Luckily, she was referred to from Alamo Area Resource to us to be able to assist her in the many things that were really happening during that time. We quickly attempted to stop foreclosure, but being that there was a lot of debt owed to it and there was like liens that were placed on the property, it was just we were not able to do so. We quickly needed to locate housing that was with lenient landlords. So we were able to just put our ear to the ground and be able to locate people that were able to assist us during that process. And luckily we did. We also empowered her entrepreneurial spirit by just scaling up her business and having her promote her business as a catering business instead of just plate sales. Client was also able to work with Raices to help build a case to avoid separation from her kids here in the States. And then also we referred the client to CareLink, which is a medical payment assistance program exclusively for our University Health System. And it allows the client to receive care and prescriptions and treatments in their by paying at a price point by according to their income. Sorry. And client was also educated on her rights and rules of ports of entry here as an immigrant living in the States. A latest update on Maria. She continues working, doing her catering services, and is actively working with Raices to have a visa, and is receiving HOPWA assistance and has been a successful HOPWA recipient for a year now. And she is very excited because her twin girls have enrolled in college full time. So we're really excited about them too. So key lessons learned. Locate organizations doing immigration legal aid and pro bono work in your area, whether it's organizations that are state level or city, as Raices was state, and or just city, things that are nonprofits in your city, and law schools that have like clinical programs, or they're able to help in some kind of way. Also seek education on immigration naturalization process for staff. Well, to raise advocacy, but also just advocacy itself reaches new heights with specializing training. It helps them guide them to helps guide clients to assistance with confidence and in a timely manner, and not miss opportunities for them. And also just educate clients about their rights during encounters with immigration and custom enforcement. Just a couple examples would be documenting, ICE arrest or when ICE at the door inside your home, and then also traveling to ports of entries and what the rules and regulations are around those items. So I would like to share their appreciation from one of our clients. He said, "This program was genius. It's motivating. Guidance is very good. I was treated well and always showed patience, even when I felt depressed and didn't answer calls. Thank you for letting me be part of the program, and now I feel like somebody." Thank you.
Hi, this is Milagros Izquierdo. I would like to share an overview of our SPINS initiative. While our work in corrections was valuable, it was just a small part of our SPINS initiative. As I oversee the Ryan White Part A program and HOPWA programs, I think our greatest impact was in housing. Also, we had some really valuable accomplishments in data systems, partnerships, and SPINS replication with Columbia University and the Atlanta EMA. Next. Establish relationships. Next. Established relationships. Key partners for this project consisted of Ryan White Part A program subrecipients, other groups, and community-based organizations. During our monthly project team meetings, we realized that there was a great need to address those recently released from jail. This was a great opportunity to enhance and expand the SPINS project and assist with the needs of the population we were trying to serve. We needed help, and we were aware that we needed to make this happen. Next. We knocked on doors from the Office of Parole and Probation Departments from the outset. We met with Passaic Parole and Probation staff in Bergen and Passaic County, which provided us an opportunity to do a presentation, and we were able to receive 5 referrals from this presentation. Information was also provided on how to access information and employment incentives for this project. Getting into Passaic County Jail was a project within itself. We needed technical assistance, so we reached out to Allie and Jackie, who had expertise in this area. They had just completed a successful project in Puerto Rico similar to ours. We met with the Passaic County Warden, and he helped us set the stage with jail-based testing, medical, and linkage to care after incarceration as the next step. Infrastructure helped in various ways. We were able to successfully manage to get referrals from jail reentry case managers to our own case managers. This allowed us to get a jump start on referral plans before inmates were released on certain dates. This opened the lines of communications, and information was shared across all silos. We connected with those involved in the criminal and legal system to assist those that were being released with legal matters. I love this picture, so next. I want to say thanks to everyone, as this project was very hard but worth it. We made a big difference in our TGA. People were very happy to be able to connect to the much needed services that we were able to provide through this project. Thanks everyone, BU, Allie and Jackie, and all the Patterson team. I think we all did a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'll be going next. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Sylvia. I am the Research and Evaluation Specialist on the Safe and Sound Return Partnership Program, better known as SSRP. I'll be going over this presentation called Improving Housing, Employment, and Health Outcomes in Clients Recently Released from Jail or Prison. So, led by the AIDS Foundation of Chicago, or AFC, the Safe and Sound Return Partnership Program, better known as SSRP, is a collaborative, multidisciplinary intervention that was designed to improve HIV health outcomes through the coordination of supportive employment and housing services, specifically for individuals in the reentry population. Next slide, please. So we decided to focus on the reentry population because once released, these individuals face additional challenges, such as the triple stigma of living with HIV, suffering from substance use, and also having involvement in the corrections system. They also face discrimination, poverty due to lack of economical resources, higher rates of mental health illness, trauma, homelessness, and low health literacy, which then can complicate their health, life stability, and the successful reintegration into the community. There is a great need in the reentry population, where non-Hispanic Blacks account for 56% of the population and 70% of local jails population, with about 1.5% of the population is living with HIV. And the vast majority are predominantly minority males, with an increase in females, with an average age of 38. Next slide, please. Thank you. So our program model and approach was to work at the client, provider, and systems level to improve the health outcomes and increase employment and housing services, we worked with a multi-sector task force to work with clients across these 3 levels. So starting with outreach and navigation, we established new trained peer community re-engagement specialists with lived experience at our partner agency, where they were able to locate and recruit eligible clients when we started, and they were also able to re-engage clients lost to care and rapidly reconnect them to intense corrections, case management, and other supportive services. We provided trainings to providers on trauma-informed care with consideration for the reentry population, and also held community-based events such as our Summits of Hope. So in order to develop our staff and stakeholder skills to address our client needs, we obtained client input from several different sources, such as our task force, our focus groups, and our gallery walk. And this picture on the right here shows the gallery walk that we had back in 2017 with our clients and staff. Like I mentioned before, we also trained and employed peer navigators with lived experience to engage with clients and provide outreach and linkage to services. Our needs assessment tool, the Corrections Case Management System, and the Correction Community Advisory Board also served as a feedback loop where we were able to reassess client needs throughout several different time points, since we know that clients' needs tend to change. We also utilize our task force, which is composed of multiple stakeholders, to invite employers, HIV providers, and clients to discuss the issues that the reentry population was facing and how to mitigate those. For example, employers in our task force were able to assist with job placement for some of our clients. We also provided trainings at every meeting on trauma, stigma, and mental health, and also held internal strategy meetings and peer supervision with one-on-one trainings. And so we were able to identify and build partnership to address client needs by employing our task force. That was the main thing. By building trust and buy-in with them to develop true partnership. We also developed a diverse network of agencies for employment, housing, and other service needs. We incorporated communication strategies both internally and externally, specifically through the platform of Basecamp, which we all use, where we're able to have 24-hour communication. And we also used our contracts, linkage agreements, and community events and programs such as our Summits of Hope to address some of our client needs. And this picture here on the right is from our 2019 Summit of Hope with one of our roundtable presenters. So specifically for employment, we invited employers to participate in our task force. Peer navigators linked clients with employment opportunities, assisted with interview preparedness and transportation. Peer navigators also had lived experience, like I mentioned before, and they were able to engage and encourage our clients through our buddy program. Our programs team also did a fantastic job at partnering with a web-based employment software called RiseKit that connects under or unemployed job candidates to careers, trainings, and serves as a wraparound service to assist with obtaining and keeping a job. And all of our staff was fully trained on how to use the software as well to assist clients. For housing, our team created a one-pager application that could be used for all of our housing programs. So this was done to reduce the paperwork burden that clients tend to face. It has now been implemented within our internal housing department here at AFC and also with the Housing Alliance, which is made up of 15 different organizations and is part of our task force as well. So clients only fill out that one-pager application, but can be considered for multiple different programs. Through our partnership with Bridge Housing, we have been able to provide temporary housing for our clients while waiting for permanent housing. And during our Summits of Hope, we have provided case management, testing services, employment housing services, as well as numerous trainings. And we also had some representation from Pearl at our summits, but these were not mandated for clients to attend. That way they could be counted as a Pearl visit. Also, IDs, support groups, education, and IDOC, or the Illinois Department of Corrections, were also accessible during the Summits of Hope. And this picture here on the left is from our Women's Summit back in July of 2019. So our overall total from the last 2 summits that we had last year, overall we had 155 participants come to the summits with 80 volunteers and 90 vendors on site. 4 of the women were identified to be HIV positive and were immediately linked to care. 9 women were identified with HCV and 24 women were given IDs at the Summits of Hope. Several women were also able to be connected to housing and employment services, and participants were also able to access the women's closet and received hair and skin consultations, which they loved. These women were given clothing items, grooming kits, hair, skin, and makeup products that they were able to take with them at the end of the event. So our overall intervention outcomes, we have been able to retain 80% of our clients in care, with 78% reaching viral suppression. For employment, 26 of our clients have been full-time employed, 10 are part-time, 3 have received paid training, 1 has received a stipend, and 4 received cash work. For housing, 37 of our clients are currently permanently housed, 11 are housed at a facility or at an institution, and 6 are currently in transitional housing. And this next slide here, this is one of our SSRP clients who was successfully housed. He was initially housed through our Bridge program when COVID-19 hit, and he has now been able to find his own apartment and is permanently housed. And he will tell us a story. So before joining or becoming a part of the Safe and Sound Return Partnership Program, or SSRP, what challenges did you have with finding employment?
I couldn't, I can't read, so I was on SSI, and I couldn't, I can't go fill out the application to get a job or nothing.
And how about what challenges were you having with finding secure housing?
I ain't never had, I've been in jail all my life, and I ain't never, had no apartment, or I used to sleep on the street, like under the bridge and stuff like that.
Okay. And what challenges were you having with connecting to care or medical services?
I go to the core center. I've been going to the core center for at least about 17 years, and I come here and go to my little meetings and stuff, and it kept me off the street and stuff like that.
Okay, great, thank you. How would you say that D. Brown, Carla, or L'Oreal have helped you address some of those challenges?
Okay, I think they really kind of rescued me, because I didn't really have nowhere to go. And once she told me to go to the hotel, and I couldn't believe it at first. And then I went to the hotel. She was standing at the door waiting on me, and she told me to give him the ID, and I gave him the ID, and he gave me a room.
How long were you there?
I was there about maybe about 4 months, almost 5 months.
That's great. And so how was that process for you in terms of the bridge to housing? So I know that you were at the hotel for a couple of months. Have you been able to find secure housing since then?
Yeah, they okay, at first, when I first got to the hotel, I had L'Oreal. They was like a case manager. They was giving me food and stuff like that. And then I got another one. Then I got another case manager. Then they told me to come go look at an apartment. And I went and looked at an apartment, but it wasn't really, it was dirty. They didn't clean the apartment up or nothing. So they say, I don't want you to go there. So they found me another apartment, and I liked it, and they liked it, and they let me move in.
Great, that's amazing. I'm really glad that you have been able to find something that you like and that works with you.
Yeah, I've been there for about maybe 3 weeks now, almost a month.
That's great. And how do you like it so far?
I love it.
I'm really glad to hear that. And so I know that you said that you've been going to the Core Center for about 17 years now.
Yeah, I've been going to the court center for 17, and you know, they treat me right here. They treat me good here.
I'm really glad to hear that. And you've been able to continue and stay in care and get your medical services there?
Yeah, I get my medication here, everything.
Great, great. And are you still on SSI or are you trying to find a job?
Okay, now I will. I mean, I got COP, right? It be hard for me to breathe sometimes, right? So, you know, I'm trying to get my SSI back before I can get. I don't have no income now. I get a link card, but I ain't got no income, and I'm trying to, you know, I do little stuff to make a few dollars, but you know, I'm trying to get my SSI back, and but if I can work, I work though. But it be so hot, I can't go up the stairs, breathe that good.
I see. And is Carla currently helping you with getting some financial assistance?
Yep, they help me. They been helping me getting. They trying to get me into. They have me got one go to a little class, trying to learn how to read or something, and they been trying to help me good.
Great, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And then, if you could tell another person in a similar situation about this program, what would you say to them?
Man, look, this is a good program, and man, it made my day. This program.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else you would like to add or share with us?
I just want to say God bless y'all, all of them who helped me, and I love them.
So just a silent round of applause for all of our speakers. Thank you so much to Tren, Nancy, Millie, and Sylvia for sharing all of the, just a piece of all the wonderful work that's happening at your sites. And there will be more, you know, dissemination to come. And so there's contact for the speakers here. And I just wanted to wrap up some major themes that we were hearing because, you know, there's different specific needs across different populations, but we did hear some themes running through on the individual, organizational, and systems level. So on the individual level, empathy and careful listening, dedicated staff time and peer staff, trauma-informed work and understanding of stigma. On the organizational level, a lot of training and educating of staff, establishing protocols that help ensure equity of services, everything from the language of intake or simplifying intake forms to warm handoffs, to targeting specific programming to underserved communities to encourage feelings of trust and safety. And then starting any process by collaborating with clients to inform the process. And as Tren was talking about, you know, quality improvement with an eye to equity and getting feedback from clients and looking at the demographics that you want to ensure there's equity for. And on the systems level, broad partnerships and really strong networking we saw across all these sites. And training and education across partners, whether that's educating and engaging landlords or educating new employment partners. So I think there was a lot of great tangible takeaways, and we're excited to open it up for questions and feedback from everyone.
I had a question I had typed in the chat box. When we had the conversations yesterday about the sites, one of the challenges that came up over and over again were the stigmas related to people who we've worked with on this project. And I just was wondering, for those of you who've worked with people living with HIV that have histories of criminal legal involvement, if there were additional barriers or considerations for that population that you think people should know about, and ways that you may have addressed those barriers would be really helpful.
Yeah, so for our clients specifically here at Chicago, there are additional legal barriers specifically for a lot of our clients, depending for just employment, to get employment and also get housing. So, and also there's a lot of stigma around involving that. Like I said, we have like the triple stigma. A lot of our clients do have are justice involved. They are living with HIV, and they also have substance misuse orders. So a lot of what we did, specifically here in Chicago, we did a lot of training around that for our providers to be aware of the population that they're working with and be able to best provide them or link them to the services that they need.
And Millie, did you want to add anything? Because I know that was also when you were talking about identifying needs in that population and building that partnership. I want to give you some space.
Yes, I just want to say that on our end, one of the biggest things that we noticed was once they were getting ready to get released out of jail, if we didn't go to the door and actually handheld this person to be able to get the additional help that they needed, we would lose that client. So what we did was we would have that communication with the reentry, but what we realized was that there was a big need for this population to get licenses back restored. They had no forms of no social security, birth certificate, etc. So we were lucky to have had a collaboration that was able to supply all these people that were coming out with that need at no cost to the client whatsoever. So not only did we get to help them, but the fact that we were able to facilitate them via this collaboration, one of the positive things that came out was the fact that some of them were able to get employment. They were able to go that route because now they had all the papers in line that needed to be upfront in order for them to go there. So that was it's very important for them to have all these documents in place, and most of the time when they're there, they're gone. So it is important to have that legal piece in place.
Thanks, Millie. And people, please feel free to raise your hand and chime in while people maybe are thinking of more questions. I wanted to follow up with AFC and give you a second to talk about if there's any plans for sustainability of your intervention and reentry work.
So we have a no-cost extension. So during that time, we plan on analyzing some of the data that we collected through our site-specific incarceration stigma. So that's something that we've been doing. We also hope to explore opportunities to collect some qualitative data from our participants, like we did with the client that you saw. And potentially adapt some of the qualitative interview materials that you have all created for the multi-site evaluation. And we also plan on using the data collected during the evaluation, assessment, and chart reviews to disseminate some key findings for specifically here with our task force and our other partner agencies as well.
I have a question, actually two questions. So number one, the first question is, how did your organization were able, for transportation, what did they do for these clients that came out of incarceration? So that's one of the questions that I have. And then the second question being that they had a, I mean, depending on your criminal record, if there's a felony, and I know it's harder to get employment. So what did you do for those clients? Not the ones that had misdemeanors and they did little time, but I'm talking about the ones that have been there for, you know, like a felony, anything over 3 gun charges, anything else besides like a substance abuse charge. So how did you manage to get those particular participants in your program housing and all the need, you know, everything that they, I mean, I think that you'll be able to get everything else for the client because it doesn't matter, but I know that housing is important and also the transportation. So how did you guys manage that?
I can answer that question. So we basically, being that we work with Core Center, we have when a client during this COVID period was able to come for emergency visits, we actually have an account where they were able to be Ubered or Lyft in. We also have contracts with actual different cab services around the Chicagoland area. And what has happened is Carla will be actually on site, and when the client arrives at the actual clinic, they're able to go down and actually pay with a voucher. And actually when the client is done, we call the actual cab service back and send the client back home. As far as our clients that had felony charges, we worked with actual agencies that hire within the corrections population. As far as us, we also work with a agency, well, not agency, it's called Rise Kits. And what it is an employment-based agency where everything is online. So we're in the process of actually having our clients do a profile. And what happens is it's like an online base where clients will be able to create their own profile, and they will be able to actually, Carla will help with them as well as our case managers, but they will be, it's hiring within the actual correction community. So a lot of our clients, though, have been able to actually go and receive services at what we've been seeing is working like at Ford and stuff like that, but not as much as working at other agencies. As far as like, it's just been more so like restaurants. We've had a client that actually worked at Chicago Bears Stadium. It's just been more so like part-time, not really full-time.
I would just add that here in Bexar County, we have second chance job fairs, like in one of our precincts. And so we would collect exactly who would be there if the clients couldn't attend. We would, the member advocates, we would all go out and probably collect, you know, who was there and see what kind of positions were available, and then see if any of those sparked interest among our clients that did have that criminal background. As we saw, some would get hired, some would also use like, not use, but like have a partner, a friend, a girlfriend, or just a roommate that they would get that didn't have that extensive criminal background, and they would actually get the lease under their name, or some family member or mom that would help them. So sometimes it's kind of gaining some trust there and trying to make things right again, and using all ways possible when we're trying to face, you know, that barrier.
So Laverne Hayes from GMHC had her hand raised, so I'd love to hear what you have to
Yes,
say.
this is for San Francisco. You talked about getting the SRO for the young lady that wanted the surgery. And I think San Francisco is probably like New York with a tight housing market. But how about housing the clients permanently, you know, in their own apartments? Do you have trouble housing in the city, or do you have to go further out into the suburbs? And do the clients still face discrimination and stigma out in those areas?
Thanks, Laverne. Yes, I think that discrimination and stigma is relevant no matter where you're at in any environment. I think it's prevalent. We have had to explore housing options outside of San Francisco, but the entire Bay Area, as everyone knows, the housing, the market is extremely tough. So you're not going to find a lot more affordability across the Bay in Oakland necessarily. You might be able to find apartments and housing that are a little bit more affordable, but still really, really expensive. So we are challenged by that. That's certainly one of the primary barriers that we encountered in San Francisco. And in this case, for this, the client that we worked with, I do believe that she found her SRO through coordinated entry, which actually has been, we're in year 3 or 4 now with coordinated entry. And it's a portal through which homeless people can access housing and social service resources through one entry point. I think that other sites may have a similar model, but you know, it's really looking at all the different avenues and channels available. If it's through coordinated entry, if it's in the private market, if it's through a friend or family member, it's just looking at every single avenue. And that's the only way that we've been able to be successful. I also want to share that avenues include mental health and substance use treatment options that include a residential component. So that has also been another option that we've leaned on to get our clients housed.
So that would include ATIs as well as outpatient and inpatient treatment?
Yes.
Great question, Laverne. Thank you. And I see Serena has her hand raised as well.
Hi, thanks. Laverne had one of my questions for PRC, but I have a second one. But first I want to say congratulations to all of you. These are really great advice and points in working with some of our most vulnerable populations, people who are struggling with legal issues, transgender persons, and promoting equity both in housing and employment. So thank you so much. And Sylvia, your client story, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name, was just amazing. To PRC, I want to just ask specifically, you talked a lot about the training program that San Francisco Department of Health has and that you and all your staff do. And I'm just wondering, because one of your unique strengths is you've been working on employment issues with people living with HIV. I know it's one of your strengths and missions. And with this initiative, what advice would you give to other grantees who are trying to start conversations with employers about that welcoming environment for transgender populations, particularly as the epidemic's moving to, is in the South where there's just so many barriers. I know there's still a lot of stigma. How do you recommend to have that conversation on the employment side, particularly? I know you worked on housing, but if we can shift a little bit.
Yeah, and Joseph Ramirez Forcier is on the call. He leads our workforce development department. So I'd like to invite Joe to comment.
So the leaders in our community were the trans legal community. So I really recommend working with the trans legal community. They know all the rights around housing. They work about correspondence. They can act on behalf of the client. They can work on employment matters, driver's license, passports. These essential documents are huge issues around identity and also access to healthcare. And they really even out the playing field. And they also understand employment law, and they will file cases, and we've won cases against individuals. So they are fighting for it, and partnering with them will help you improve your language. They also work with a large cohort of individuals. So it's a great individuals to network, to cross-train with them, and that's where we got our roots. They also do a lot of education to employers and to the community. They often have fairs and outreach events, so we started tabling with them, and that's basically the root of it. So these social organizations. We also in San Francisco had an immigrant small nonprofit that targeted trans, Latinx, trans folks who were working within the margins. So, less than 30% are employed, but you have to work with we work with the St. James Infirmary, and so these medical establishments and the medical case managers, you want to work with them if you have nonprofits where the sexual reassignment services occur, and also for those that are doing sex work. So that in this intersectionality, you have the majority of the individuals who have over a decade of living in a service industry, who are prone to violence, and the death rate, especially for Black trans, is so significant. And each of these traumatizes the community on an ongoing basis. And so being aware and maybe reviewing with your staff to understand what's happening in your community around trans deaths, trans violence, working with a violence provider in addition for their safety, and then really good suicide training. So you have a lot of self-harm, a lot of suicide ideations and attempts in the community, and there are people who would traditionally say they're not worth the time and effort and screen out in normal service models. So you have to allow for trauma to be in the room, and you have to ride the crest of the wave, because everyone is worth a chance and an opportunity.
I also wanted to just share a thought I had in response to your question, Serena, which is I think it's important to view ourselves as employers as well. As an organization, PRC, and I'm sure a lot of the organizations that are on this call right now, I mean, we all hire people with lived experience. We hire people who are transgender. We hire people who have criminal history. Like, we are part of the employer pool. So one, I think it's really important to be looking at our internal hiring practices and hiring people that really are from the community of folks that we're trying to serve. So that's another thought in terms of the employer side, is to really consider, how do we all function as employers, and what can we do to change, in effect, stigma that people experience.
And just to go off of you, it was important for us when we were hiring our interventionist staff to hire within, being that this person may have went through the system, know the ins and outs, know the barriers that they may have had with challenges. So that was more when we were hiring, we wanted to hire within the target population that we were working with.
Thanks, Loria.
Hi. Sorry, does someone have a question?
No, go for it, Lanika. And I think Laverne may be next, but since we've heard from her, I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, so before I ask hi, this is Lanika, Houston AIDS Foundation, Houston and Avenue 360. Before I ask my question, I'm just going to give a little background of where the question is coming from. So we have a population of transgender clients that we work with, and we've noticed when it comes to stigma, this is I don't want to sound ugly, so this is something that the clients love to use as a barrier or an excuse for them not to seek employment. However, what we've noticed that when it's beneficial to the client doesn't use that excuse as far as doing the things that they want to do. Now, as a case manager, someone who served the clients, we try to go through different avenues to try to address those barriers, such as referring them to counseling to try to deal with some of the issues that they may have, even group counseling, individual counseling, and they're not interested, or even some employers that are geared towards hiring transgenders, and they seem to not be employed. But if they want to party or hang out with one another, then it's fine for them. They don't have these issues. So my question is, what tips or what tools have you all used as far as getting your transgender clients employed, or just being comfortable with themselves when seeking employment, and just moving forward with becoming self-sufficient and independent during this time period?
So what we do at PRC is we understand stages of change. So are they contemplating? Have they made a plan? Have they made an action? And remember, these take 9 months or longer. So in a year, you're not going to really push someone through a phase. The other thing to remember is, have they bought into meaningful activity? So if meaningful activity is socializing them, make them be a volunteer in a social program. That is actually skill building behind the scenes, and have them organize events. Also education and communications, public relationships. But I don't think, leading with employment is always the right option. It's the traditional way of doing it. But behind that is they're just not ready. And so this goes back to motivational interviewing, not what you don't want to do. And I often say this, I don't need to hear what you don't want to do. I need to hear what you're willing to do. And also, mental health best practice, it's real if you say it's real, because you're dealing with a lot of personality traits and diagnosis, and you may not be that clinician. Everything is real for that person, and we do have to take, it's hard for me to take a step back, because rationally that does not work for me. It's not how I go through the world, and I have a different entitlement in a way of, and I'm very work-centric, and I'm always worked. So I have bias, and so I have to unpack that and say, you know what, they're not going to live my life, and I can't live theirs. And so I have to unpack that in a way that says, you know what is realistic? So this is the most important part of planning in 9 months for this person. What are the baby steps that I can break down that seem so simple for me? And this is where lived experience is I have some lived experience, but I don't have this person's lived experience, right? And so, right. and I may not be patient with their process. So stepping back and kind of like, I may pass it off to a staff person who's really more patient, who just takes a lot of time, because I may not. And also just to say, what is the meaningful activity? How do they want to participate in life? And maybe it's linkage to care during this year with mental health and physical health is the best goal with showing up on a regular basis and having trusted support. Understanding developmental psychology is really important, and you know, a lot of trans individuals get diagnosed appropriately or inappropriately, who knows, with borderline personalities, but this is because the people aren't getting what they needed at the right developmental stage. And I think some compassion has to be taken to when people need attention, they need it for a reason. And if they're not doing it, they're doing it due to a traumatic response to a sociological situation.
Thank you for explaining that, Joseph. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense now that you say it in that manner. And I've taken like some professional development classes in, you know, psychology just to kind of see how I can still meet the needs of the clients. And it makes sense to actually take a step back because I do find myself impatient, especially when I am seeing the clients do other things. You know, it's like, okay, so your house, you know, we're offering you this opportunity. You're saying you want to work, but what are you doing to try to work, you know? But I really appreciate it. And thank you for explaining that to me.
Thank you for you know, asking that question and asking something that you an area that you wanted to grow into. So that's great. I appreciate that conversation.
Thank you. I just wanted to make one comment about when we're getting our clients employed. I listen to all the conversations about, you know, the type of jobs the clients got, and even with my clients, you know, low wage jobs. I think it's essential that, you know, we prepare our clients and continue to offer them support on managing a budget. You know, when you go from whatever amount that HRA is giving you a month to being able to have a little extra money, you know, in your pocket, it's very easy to overspend your budget. You know, we've got millions of people that are living paycheck to paycheck, you know, that are in the same boat as our clients. And we just have to prepare them so that they know, you know, it's everybody is, you know, in the same boat. I think Angelo definitely, you know, with his budgeting with the client, he's following up, you know, did you pay your light bill? Did you pay your cell phone bill? Okay. Whatever money you have over, you know, is left for that. Did you even put aside, you know, $25 or $10 a month? Because clients can become very disillusioned with, what am I working for? You know, this is all I'm going to end up with at the end of the month.
Serena, I also see that Carla Davis has her hand up. Carla, do you want to unmute?
I just wanted to comment. As you guys know, my name is Carla Davis, and I am a correctional navigator at the court center. And the young lady was speaking on about the barriers that a lot of the clients present when they come in when it comes to housing or employment. Me being a woman who has lived with HIV since 1999 and has transitioned from being homeless, addicted to drugs, in and out of the penitentiary, who's now fully employed, I relate to the clients because I had those barriers. You know, one of my fears early on was telling my lawyers my status or, you know, my medical history, because I knew I was going to have to make my doctor's appointments, and I was wondering, like, how would I go about telling them where I can't come in today or I have to come in late today to make my appointments without exposing what's going on with me. So I face a lot of those dealing with our clients, and that's why I think it's really important that we have people on staff that have lived experience, you know, because our clients come to us with these barriers, but I'm a living witness that you can have a full-time job, you can get clean, sober, and you can have a family, and you can do all these things and still take care of your medical situation. And it doesn't have to be that stumbling block that a lot of clients seem to face when they come to us. So I guess what I'm saying is that when you have a person on your staff that knows exactly what the barriers are, to be a representative of how to overcome those barriers, that's a great thing, because they look at you and they say, well, she can show me, or he can show me, or walk me through how to do this process. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Carla, for sharing your story, being willing to share your story, and making that important point about having people with lived experience on the team. And I just want to open it up to see, does anyone else from our grantees want to talk about or add to what Carla's saying in terms of, I know we talked a little bit about it yesterday in terms of the employment and looking at the job clubs and the importance of that peer support. We had some programs talk about that as well, but anyone else want to share something from their site?
This is Laverne. I definitely, when I talked about our groups, that was the most attended group, the peer group. They were in there together, and with Michael, that had their lived experience that could help them go through it. Even his educational level was different than theirs, but he still had that experience of being homeless and having to go through the system to come back and get on his feet. So I applaud Carla, and she's definitely correct. You have to have someone that is able to relate, because we've been trained and we know the language, but if you haven't been there and done those things in your life, it's really hard to deep down relate.
And Carla and Laverne, I'm just wondering, can you also comment about what also helps make the environment welcoming to have a peer on the team? Was there something your agencies had to do, or Carla, for you, was there something that made a big difference in making sure that you succeeded as being part of that team?
On our team, I think, setting the expectations, and at the start of every group, they went over the rules so that they weren't getting in and shouting matches. And the groups were, the conversation, the peer may have decided, this is what I want to talk about today. But if the group had other urgent plans, things that were going on in their lives or situations that they wanted to bring up, being flexible, to help them deal with it. Because sometimes they would end up being counseling sessions. They can talk amongst themselves. No, man, this is what you really need to do, and encourage each other. Because they passed along lots of tips for housing, most definitely. How to, we have a housing lottery, what you need to put on the application where it says, oh, do you have a voucher? Most people would think it was Section 8 voucher, but no, our HRA system, pays for the housing. So that's considered a voucher in the lottery system. And when to apply. The lottery goes up on Thursday morning, but it's really Wednesday night at 12:01. So don't apply at 12:01. 12:15 is the time to get in, where you could get a low number because it goes by number, those type of things.
Great. Thanks, Laverne. Do we have any other questions or comments for our panelists? No? Okay. So Jessica, I think
I have something to say.
Oh, okay, wait a minute. Where's that? Oh, Precious. Sorry. Okay, go ahead, Precious.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to
say that it is important when you have programs such as this to continue to hire peers with lived experience, because it does make an impact on the clients' lives. Because as a woman who is living and thriving with HIV for 22 years, when women do come in and who are, you know, walking in my shoes, and men, it definitely, it just it's a whole different, it allows them to take down their barriers and their walls, because like, oh wow, I'm looking at someone that is successful, you know, who has transitioned from being homeless to having a job, to being accountable, to being responsible, that I can do it too. So we are beacons of light. And so I just wanted to just encourage and continue to encourage that having peers is very valuable.
Precious.
And that's all.
No, Precious, stay on. Can you please, because not everyone here, we have some people from outside our SPINS project that are here. Can you just tell folks where you work and what you do as well as part of this initiative and other work?
Oh, okay. So I work at City of Pasadena Public Health Department. And I worked on the very first HRSA SPINS initiative, and that was awesome. And then of course we got this grant. And so I'm a peer care navigator. And so I've been able to, along with Felipe Gonzalez, who's also a phenomenal peer care navigator. And so I've been able to, you know, work with the clients and walk them through. And let's see, I do that. I also do HIV testing and counseling. And what else do I do? Let me see. Oh yeah, and I do ADAP. So enroll the clients into ADAP to ensure that they get their needed medical medications. And on the outside of my work, I've just become certified as a birth and postpartum doula. So I'm really excited about that career that I'm going to be taking on. And I'm also a self-published author. I have one book out, and then my second book will be dropping next month on my birthday.
And I'll just add that this is a really great segue into our next session, where we are going to feature Precious Jackson, and she will be taking us through the work that she has and others have done at Pasadena. And so, so more on that soon.